Hey guys, welcome to today's video. This is Martin from martinmixing.com. And today is a good day because today we have an SSL Channel Compressor available for the first time in the virtual mix rack ecosystem, which means that for the first time ever, we can actually assemble a proper SSL channel strip in our virtual mix racks. But how does this Slate Digital virtual mix rack version of the SSL channel strip hold up against the Brainworx one? Let's find out. So let's jump right into Logic. I have prepared 4 different audio files for us, which is a kick, a bass, a snare, and a vocal. I've copied the settings exactly between the Brainworx and the virtual mix rack version of the SSL channel, just to get a fair comparison to how they sound with matched settings. So let's jump right into Logic. First, we have a kick here. As you can see, I have audio files prepared so that no MIDI multiple sample differences can cause any distraction. It's exactly the same audio and exactly the same settings, which you can see right here. We have the EQ first going into the compressor, matching thresholds at -20, 4:1 ratio, slow attack, no filter, match gain. Let's have a look at how these sound. Wow, so right away on the kick, I can tell that it sounds very different. To me, it sounds like the attack on the Brainworx is actually a little bit slower. I get a little bit more punch, a little bit more of the low end oomph on this one. Whereas on this one, the Slate version, I get a little bit more attack. Also, it sounds like the Slate version is a little bit louder compared to the Brainworx. Let's just double check. Yes, even on the meters that I can see on my separate screen, there is a 1 dB difference between the two by matching settings. And what also really surprises me that even though the threshold is matched and both of them are set to -20 dB, I am getting a lot more compression, at least according to the meters, on the BX version of this compressor. Let's just have another look. So here we can see that the LEDs actually go into the 10 dB range. I set these settings quite aggressively on purpose. Whereas on the Slate, we are only tickling the 3 dB LED. This is quite mind-blowing. But I have to say that the Slate version actually sounds a little bit more compressed to me. That might be because of the different attack characteristics. Maybe the Brainworx has a harder knee. I don't know, but these sound definitely different to me. Now, this doesn't have to mean that one is better or worse than the other. It could just mean that Brainworx had a different version of the SSL channel available to model and Slate had yet another one. So maybe their modeling technology is the same or identical or equally good, but they just had access to different SSL channel strips in their, laboratories. I myself have used a lot of SSL consoles in my time and they do indeed sound different, and I do recognize the SSL sound in both of these channel strips that I have in front of me. So I would say that they're both very good. I would say that the BX sounds a bit more familiar to my ears, whereas the Slate version sounds a bit more aggressive. But let's check out the bass. So as you can see, we have here the compressor first going into the equalizer, a little bit of cut in the low mids, a little bit of bump in the lows, 2:1 ratio, slow-ish release, slow attack, and the threshold at -10. Let's see how these compare. Okay, so here the difference becomes very subtle actually. I'm really surprised how big the difference was on the kick, and yet on the bass it's so subtle. To me, the Slate version has a little bit more lower mid-range here, a little bit more low mid-boom. The Brainworx sounds a little bit clearer, and it seems to have a slightly more extended low end to me. Again, this could be just differences in the modeling again. So here, interestingly, the differences are very subtle. And what really surprises me is that the compression actually matches here. So I don't know what's going on the kick, but here it has to be an attack thing. It has to be that the attack on the Brainworx is a little bit slower, because I cannot explain otherwise the difference that we get in gain reduction on the kick compared to the bass. Let's have another look. So we get 6 dB here. And we get the same 6 dB on the Slate version. And yet, I mean, here they sound very similar. They are close competitors. I wouldn't mind which one to use. On the kick, I would probably stick to the BX, but on bass, I'm really happy to use the Slate one as well. I mean, they just sound so close. Yes, the BX just sounds a little bit more open, just a tiny bit more open. Again, I think that has to do with the slower compression on this particular version of this channel strip. But now let's move on. And let's check out what this compressor is really designed for, which is snare. We all know, we all love the SSL kind of snare sound. So let's check this out. Okay, now I really don't know what's going on. Now we actually get 0 compression on the Slate version, but about 3 dB on the BX. I mean, I'm just gonna have to go and try to match it by ear. Let's just have a look. Actually, let's go a bit more extreme. Let's go -20 on the BX, just to get a really obvious compression effect. That sounds really good to me. And now let's try to match that on the Slate. Now here the Slate definitely sounds snappier, and even with the threshold cranked all the way to -26, we are not getting the same level of gain reduction. But I think, again, because this one sounds to me a little bit faster, we seem to get a punchier, snappier snare. What I also noticed is that here the overload on the BX is lighting up. So let's move the virtual channel to the end of the chain and try to get the same kind of overload here as well. Okay, so I managed to set up the virtual channel as well, so it cuts off the transient at exactly the same point. And if you just look at the meter readings here, you will see that it's identical. So yes, we are clipping the channel, but we are in negative range with our volume fader, so it is fine, and we are not actually getting any clipping on the master bus. Yes, again, on the snare, to me, the Brainworx sounds a bit more relaxed compared to the FG Din. I don't know which one I prepare. I think this is very much a taste thing. It very much depends on the situation. Again, I don't think I would hesitate to use the Slate version if it's convenient. I also don't like that the BX is actually generating a little bit of self-noise, so that's why I try to avoid this plugin, unfortunately, in many scenarios where I would actually prefer to use it. I don't know, to me the Slate sounds really, really good, and it actually does sound familiar compared to the consoles that I used in real life as well. Okay, so let's have a listen to how it sounds on the vocal.
Cold little hands, heavy eyelids. Cold little hands, heavy eyelids, drooping slowly dim. Cold little hands, heavy eyes.
So wow, on the vocal, the results are very, very, very different, I would say. I think the compression is okay. I mean, they're both compressed, it sounds okay. We have slightly different settings here. We get about 6 to 10 dB of compression. That's all fine, but the tone is very different. The BX sounds a lot fuller. I get a lot more low, mid, and a lot fuller body in the vocal compared to the Slate. Let's have a look at where this might come from. I'm going to try to match the settings by ear because it's just so different.
Cold little hands, heavy eyelids, drooping slowly dim. Cold little hands, heavy eyelids, drooping slowly dim. Cold little hands, heavy eyelids.
So this is a somewhat comparable setting to me, but I mean, I had to boost 7 dB on low end and lower my low cut as well, which is quite crazy. That's quite a huge difference in terms of tonality here. Let's just see what happens if I move the virtual channel at the end of my chain without the boost.
Cold little hands, heavy.
No, same result. I'm still missing that low end body. Well, it sounds great. Both of them sound good to me. Here, I think for the vocal, I would not necessarily use an SSL anyway. I just wanted to see how they compare. So here I would usually use something like an LA2A with a more mellow EQ, but the tonal difference is quite obvious. So this is definitely a matter of taste, a matter of preference. I'm not saying one of them is better or worse or the other ones. I still very much love the convenience of the virtual mix rack, that I can just cherry pick what I want for my own channel strip in the given mixing situation. But I have to say that the BX really impresses me. Okay, so as a summary I can say the two channel strips, the BX and the Slate, do sound different. There is a distinctive difference how they handle low end, how the compression handles attack, and even in levels there's a little bit of difference between the compression amount and the final output level, which I find quite fascinating. Now I think that because we are modeling analog gear here, and really old analog gear for that matter, how they were serviced, how they were manufactured. There's a bigger tolerance in analog equipment than there is in digital, of course, so probably they just weren't modeling the same exact piece of hardware. That doesn't mean that the BX or the Slate are better or worse compared to the other, they just sound very different, at least to my ears. Which one do I prefer? I think I'll still keep using both. On the kick, I would definitely reach for my BX. For the bass, I wouldn't mind. I would probably not use an SSL EQ on the bass anyway, so I would probably use the compression of it and use a different kind of EQ. So on the virtual mix rack, I really like that you can cherry pick these separate ingredients, and I think this flexibility and this versatility are worth the different kind of tone and character that you might get from the virtual mix rack. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? What do you think about this comparison? How does it sound to you? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Until then, happy mixing, take it easy, bye bye.